My first impression of him was that he was very thoughtful, very quiet, and very, very smart.
First impressions is too young to do what he was doing, and wondering why he was there. And it lasted for probably 5 minutes.
He would get students out at the university very excited about working on special projects.
The energy that this person had was just unbelievable.
He had an uncanny skill at causing people to come to the table.
He was more than happy to have other people take credit, have other people be in the limelight.
He had that ability to make you think in larger terms. And sure, maybe there was going to be some pulling back at some point, but maybe you were pulling back to a point that you might be more comfortable, but it was probably a lot further than where you started out in the first place. And I think that's the value of someone like Richard Shatton.
Richard Shatton was born and raised in Greater Cleveland. He earned a B.A. from Harvard in 1977 and an M.B.A. from the Harvard Business School in 1980. He began his career at McKinsey & Company, a management consulting firm in Cleveland, where he met Bill Selbach.
Many people have commented on his brilliant mind. He was absolutely a brilliant thinker, very insightful, very focused in his thinking, and very thoughtful on any subject.
At McKinsey, Richard Shatton became part of a team that studied Cleveland's struggling economy. The study led to the creation of Cleveland Tomorrow, an organization comprised of the city's most powerful corporate leaders.
And what a true leader does is a true leader looks at the world as it exists and wants to change it. And that's a terrible thing to try to do. What a manager does is he looks at the world and tries to make it better as it exists. But a leader tries to change the world. And that's what Richard actually did. He changed the world, he affected the people around him. His enthusiasm just overcame all of us.
I've always said that in every organization there are lots of people who know what ought to be done. There are relatively few who know what ought to be done and have an idea about how to get it done. Richard Shatton made a difference, no question in my mind.
As executive director of Cleveland Tomorrow, Shatton played a leading role in many downtown development projects.
An example would be the renovations at Playhouse Square, the downtown arena for the Cavs, the new stadium for the Indians. He made a huge difference.
But the building of buildings wasn't what drove Richard Shatton. He was more interested in building relationships between people and government and foundations and business. Business leaders were particularly impressed with his practicality.
Lots of people are smart. Lots of people can think up ideas. Lots of people can come up with an idea that somebody else hasn't thought about. But being able to combine that with a practical what might actually happen and work within our lifetimes was the skill that Richard brought to the table.
But Richard Shatton brought something else to the table. He brought neighborhood advocates into the room and sat them down next to the corporate executives.
He made me feel as what I had to say was just as important as what the CEO sitting next to me had to say.
In 1997, Shatton began a new career, helping to shape the careers of tomorrow's leaders. He joined Case Western Reserve University, where he became an economics professor at the Weatherhead School of Management and executive director of the Center for Regional Economic Issues.
Richard and I arrived at the university at the same time. He had a knack for matching students to projects.
It took only one 45-minute meeting to convince Megan Van Voorhees that she had met a teacher who would change her life.
I remember leaving that meeting, going to my class, I think it was like a statistics class after that, meeting with a friend, and thinking to myself, and talking to her saying, this is amazing. This man is going to be my mentor.
As a teacher, as a manager, and as an expert in economic development, Richard Shatton knew the value of taking risks, especially if it meant making your hometown a better place.
To move this place another step will require another, and I used to be very reluctant to say these things, but I'll say another $1 billion, and probably tax increases, the things we're not allowed to talk about. That if you want to pay for things that are big projects cost a lot of money. You can't wish them away.
Richard lived his life in a way that a lot of people don't or can't. He had a mission that he was always focused on, and that mission was this region, this city that he loved was dealt a really bad set of economic cards.
He could have made much more money working in the private sector, and he made the personal choice to helping the greater Cleveland community improve.
For him, the fact that he had this tumor, it was occasionally inconvenient, like when he had to go in for chemotherapy, but it was sort of an incidental, it was an incidental fact of his life. It was not the central fact of his life. And it never was. It never was, which is kind of remarkable.